Hey everybody, welcome to episode 28 of the AskDAP show, where we answer your Volkswagen and Audi questions. On this episode, we talk about JB1 versus tunes, CCs with a no start condition, FSI engines with a high pressure fuel pump fault, and Mark 7s with a check oil light.
Rob M via Facebook says, so, from what I researched, the JB1 gives base gains of 50 horsepower, which for a Golf puts it at 230 horsepower. You buy the cable to adjust stuff, you can get up to 70 horsepower, putting it at 250 horsepower, and you're only spending $400. Also, adding to the fact that it's removable and you can take it off to the dealer for dealer work or whatever. So why the hell would you guys spend $800 to $1,000 on a Stage 2 tune from APR or GAIAC for extra when the gains are exactly the same, and you ruin your warranty on top of one JB1 saving you $400 to $600 and you can remove it without ruining your warranty?
Okay, so for anybody who's not familiar with what Rob's referring to, he's referring to a JB1 or a Berger Motorsports. They have a piggyback module that basically plugs into the sensors in the vehicle and it gives you more power. Now he's comparing that setup versus a setup that has, you actually load software onto the ECM of the vehicle. Now, obviously the main difference is software versus a piggyback system. Now, there are benefits to both without a doubt, and obviously cost is going to be one variable that weighs in the favor of a piggyback system. So let's go over a brief rundown of the difference between a piggyback and software. A piggyback system is a great system that is definitely more cost effective. You're going to get probably similar power numbers, or at least close to the power numbers you're going to get from a tune. The downsides to piggyback software, for some people, depending on who you are, a piggyback system for somebody who's a DIY person and you're going to do it yourself, then that makes sense because then you can remove it before you go to the dealer. The problem is, if you're not a DIY person and you're paying somebody to install that system, it's not as easily reversible depending on who you are and your situation. So, if you're going to have a piggyback module done on your vehicle and you're paying somebody to install it, it's probably not going to be cost effective for you to pay somebody to remove it every time you take your vehicle into the dealer. In that case, obviously, maybe you would go with software instead. Now, again, there are some potentials to void your warranty, as you mentioned, which is why people like to go with things like the JB1, because you can remove it, make sure that nobody knows about it, and then take your vehicle in for warranty repair. The downsides of a piggyback module are going to be a few things. One, keep in mind, basically the way a piggyback module works is it tricks the vehicle into making more power. Now what that means is that the ECM of the vehicle, which actually controls all the systems in the car, doesn't actually know the amount of power it's making, which also means it's not going to necessarily adjust everything accordingly. So the benefits of actual software is that all of the systems are programmed and coordinated for the power it's making currently. So that obviously power you gain, as well as more adjustability with that software, as opposed to just tricking the vehicle into making more power, doesn't give you that same adjustability. Now there is obviously cost associated with that, but you're also getting, assuming you're going from one of the major companies like APR, Uniconnect, or Revo, and potentially Garrett and some of the other ones, they obviously are companies who vet their product, make sure that they have all the drivability stuff perfect and everything else. Now, the other thing I want to mention about the Berger stuff is, as you mentioned, to get that extra boost in power, you're actually going to have to do some tweaking, which for some people is awesome. They really like to tinker with their stuff and they like to modify their vehicle and mess with it and have something that gets them the maximum power for the most money. Some people are looking for a turnkey solution. And if you're looking for a turnkey solution, the JB1 may not be the route you want to go in, because you don't want to mess with your car. You don't want to have to tweak it to get that extra bit of power. You just want to give it to somebody, have them tune your car, get it back, get the maximum performance with the least amount of energy on your part. Now, the thing to keep in mind is whenever you start doing DIY stuff, when you start having anything that you need to tweak or work on, there may not be the support that you need. It may be something you have to figure out on your own. So that's something just to be aware. And for anybody who's not familiar, we'll put a link to the JB1 stuff. We actually are a Berger Motorsport dealer, and we have some of those modules coming in the near future if you're watching it right when this video is made. If not, we would probably have them in stock at the time for Mark 7's MQB models and all that stuff.
Martin M via shopdap.com is having issues with his 2010 VW CC 2.0T. He's got no fault codes and he's having trouble getting the car to start. After doing many different types of diagnostics, it's still not able to start. He's looking for some information to point him in the right direction.
Okay, so Martin, the 2010 CC with a no start condition. In this particular case, I would probably lean towards a crank position sensor just because there's no fault codes and there's no indication of anything working properly as far as it cranking. And you're probably getting a sporadic reading from the crank sensor, which is why it sometimes tries to start but then won't. It could be fuel related. That would be my next place to go in this particular situation. But if it is fuel related, it means you're probably not getting any fuel at all. And since you say you're measuring pressure through the OBD2 system, I'm not sure. You know, a lot of times those generic scanners are not very good, so they're not going to give you very good precise data. More specifically, precise data in the fact of there are a lot of different places to acquire information through a VAGCOM, and you're not sure when you go with those generic ones where that data is actually coming from, which sensor, you know, and stuff like that. So I would say probably crank sensor, lean that direction. If not, you should look into the fuel system, which would probably be either most likely the electric transfer pump in the tank or the module, but I would lean towards the in-tank pump in that particular instance.
Ethan S via Facebook says, just hit 4,700 miles, got a check oil level warning. Is this normal?
Okay, so Ethan had a Mark 7 GTI, I believe. I know it was in the Mark 7 Facebook group that this was posted. Something to keep in mind, anytime you get a check oil light of any kind, you're always going to want to address that immediately. You should never get check oil lights or oil pressure lights or anything like that. So you might get something that says maintenance soon light or service soon light or service due. That would be something that is just indicating that you need service. Now, if you have any other type of light, like an oil light, you're going to want to immediately make sure you're checking your oil and determine if there's something going on. Obviously, if you do have an oil pressure issue or an oil level issue, you are going to want to monitor that to make sure that it is not a persistent issue, that you have either a leak or an oil consumption problem or something else like that, because obviously that is a pretty low mileage and you shouldn't really be consuming much oil during low mileage situations.
Robbie via Facebook says, I'm having an issue with the 2006 Mark V 2.0T FSI that has me stumped. Any ideas or help would be great. I'm getting code P2293 fuel pressure regulator valve mechanical malfunction. The entire top end is new with new fuel pump, in tank, and high pressure. Injectors are also new and it has a new fuel filter. I've swapped high pressure fuel pumps with the known good one, even though mine is new and I still have the same issue.
Okay, so this fault actually leads towards the N276 valve, which is actually a solenoid that's built into the top of the high pressure fuel pump. This happens on both FSI and TSI, although obviously this one is an FSI. So if you have a known good high pressure fuel pump, because my first direction would be always saying, okay, it's a high pressure fuel pump. But if you bought a new one, okay, even if it's aftermarket or maybe it's bad, you think it could be bad and you swap to another known good one, if that doesn't fix it, then for sure you know it's not the high pressure fuel pump. So then where do we go from there? The next direction I would say would be the fuel pressure sensors. I believe I got a little more information from this gentleman and he said that one of his sensors was replaced, the low pressure one, but he did not replace the high pressure one on the rail. There are two different high pressure sensors on the rail depending on the year of your FSI. There's an earlier one and a later one. The earlier one is for vehicles that probably had that bamboo fitting, and then the later one for all the other models. So I would say it's likely to be one of three things that this particular fault is related to. One of them is that high pressure sensor on the rail itself that he has not replaced yet. The other two would be there's a fuel pressure regulator and then a pressure relief valve that both attach to the high pressure fuel pump. My guess is that it's either one of those two valves that's bleeding off pressure because they're mechanical valves, and or something related to that high pressure sensor on the rail. So you should check into both of those and take a look. and you'll probably solve your issue. Thank you for watching episode 28 of the AskDAP show, where we answer your Volkswagen and Audi questions. If you have any comments or think I missed anything about the questions I answered today, be sure to leave it in the comments below. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and of course, subscribe on YouTube.